Good afternoon. I'm finally home from work today. So here was the plan. Today is shoulder day, but I already did a shoulder video and I haven't done another workout. I did 2 shoulder videos back to back, and obviously I don't want to have 3 shoulder day videos in a row. So yesterday I actually recorded my chest day video. Now, why did I do that? Because today my friend and I, we're going to see Frankenstein in the cinema before it leaves, because I'm a huge fan of Guillermo del Toro, and his take on Frankenstein has to be a masterpiece. And also, this is my best friend, and him and I, we go to see these types of like limited release films together. I mean, we saw Toxic Avenger, we saw Shin Kamen Rider, Thanksgiving wasn't a limited release, but it's at the exact same theater that the only screening of Thanksgiving is taking place. So I was assuming that the amount of time between training chest and getting to the cinema was going to be way too long, but as it turns out, the screening I can make is a little bit later than I was expecting.
Extremely.
So I could have just trained chest today as opposed to shoulders, but it is what it is. C'est la vie. Anyways, my friends, have some fun watching me train chest while I'm actually today going to train some shoulders. And then after that, I'm gonna see Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro, and that movie is going to be a banger. Kind of sucks that I am watching it after Halloween, but it's more of a gothic science fiction epic than it is straight up horror film. So I think it's a nice transition from Halloween to Thanksgiving. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in a bit. So outside of music, I wanted to talk about things I enjoy listening to while working out. Now, I'm not sure if I discussed this before, but even if I have, I figured I'd retouch the subject again because it is kind of a fun thing to talk about. Kind of a curious thing I enjoy listening to is a lot of political, social, or philosophical audiobooks while training, because when I'm training, my mind kind of gets in the zone and I'm actually absorbing more information than a lot of people might realize. Now, like I said, this isn't a political channel or anything like that, but I do still follow politics. I do try my best to keep up with it, and learning different political views, different philosophies, different social issues and things like that is very absorbing in its own way. But, it's stuff like that. It's not really that fun to listen to because it is very serious stuff and you do have to take a lot of it in. That's what she said. But outside of that, if we're going to talk about more fun stuff, I enjoy listening to horror novels, or, not just horror novels, just audiobooks in general. Starship Troopers obviously being one of them. It's my favorite book of all time. Dracula. Spotify has Crime and Punishment, the full audiobook, but that's really long. So that's something I've been listening to on and off again, because something like that is so epic. And like I said, it's a very long novel. There's so much detail in that the brain really has to absorb all that information. So that's an on again, off again book for me, but it's a classic for a reason. So I have to listen to it and read it as well. Obviously I read physical books too, but I'm not one of those nitpicky people who says, if you listen to an audiobook, you're not really reading the book. Oh, get a life. So now I'm back home from the gym and I gotta get my shoes on quickly because the movie starts in about a half hour and it's not a close cinema. So, well, it's about a half hour away, but hopefully traffic isn't too awful so we can get there at a reasonable time. Hopefully. But we gotta see Frankenstein. And my friends, it is darkety dark out, and I think this is the perfect atmosphere to watch something like Frankenstein. Now, the movie is going to run pretty late. It's 2.5 hours, I think, and I got work in the morning, and the movie starts at 6. So, not going to be able to do much. Once the movie's done, just pack it up, get home, and fall right to sleep. Now, I might ask Tyler to do a review of the movie with me before I head home, because this is a movie I'm definitely excited for. These limited release Netflix movies are pretty cool to catch in the cinema when you can. And obviously it's a Del Toro Frankenstein movie, and Del Toro is a master at the movie-making craft. So I am excited to see it either way, even if this wasn't one of those limited release Netflix movies. If this was just a Del Toro movie, I'd be like, okay, I'm getting on the bounce and I'm seeing it immediately, even though I still need to see his Pinocchio adaptation, which I heard is spectacular. But I'll get to that. The Criterion sale is happening, so I'm probably going to buy it then. But of all the directors, I think Del Toro is probably the best option for a modern Frankenstein movie, as well as Dracula, Wolfman. I mean, his style is basically a modern take on the Hammer style of filmmaking. And if he were to remake any movie, even though I think this movie is not remakeable because it's already a masterpiece, it's called Curse of the Werewolf. I think if he was given permission to make the remake, I think he would do an exceptional job at that. But again, that is such a great werewolf movie that I don't think it even needs to be remade. Again, I think he'd do an exceptional job at a Dracula movie. I mean, his film Kronos is already a masterpiece in and of itself. His Blade 2, his Strain series, he knows fantasy lore very well. Even though I would like to see him do more original stuff, which is why I loved Pacific Rim, which is why I really enjoyed Crimson Peak, even if Crimson Peak was more of a like, not a love. But still, Del Toro is such a master that the positives of Crimson Peak outweigh anything I could say against it. And there's not much negative I have about it. It's just really misadvertising, because that was advertised as a horror movie, but it was definitely more of a gothic drama. But either way, I am excited as heck to see his adaptation of Frankenstein, because I am expecting nothing but an exceptional experience. Anyways, I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to get to the cinema. Just because I like this kitchen a lot, I figured I'd bring the setting back to the kitchen as opposed to my bedroom, which I probably will use more often now. But I wanted to actually quickly talk about my thoughts on Frankenstein, because my friend Tyler and I, we saw it last night, and you know what? We loved it. And I wanted to do a review with him, but it got really late, so we weren't able to actually sit in the car and talk about it for a while. If it was the weekend, we probably would have been able to, but given that it is a work night, both of us had to be up really early in the morning, so we couldn't just sit down and talk about the movie for as long as we might want to. But we did both heavily enjoy it. And here's the thing, he actually did read the book, and I asked him, how accurate is the movie to the book? And he said it's pretty accurate, but they did change a few things. And he said that the changes they made weren't that really severe, but he said it's consistent with them finding Frankenstein on the boat, and then Frankenstein telling his story, and then the monster comes and then tells his side of the story. Now, the whole package, first things first, I have to say the acting is exceptional, because Oscar Isaac is a master of the craft. And I can't remember the gentleman's name who plays the monster, but the way he portrays him, obviously it's not the same as like the version from 1910. It's not the same as the version of Boris Karloff. It's not the same as Christopher Lee. This is a much more intelligent. It's more in line with the Robert De Niro version of the movie, where the monster is actually communicating with people. It can talk, it can think. It has emotions. Basically, how I would describe it is, it's if you put the mind of a child into the body of a 6'4" powerlifter. That's how I would describe the monster. That's even kind of how it's described in the book too. I haven't read the book. Even I did just start reading it, which is actually pretty cool because my older brother, he actually bought it for me, and this was back when I was getting into reading classic literature, and he for Christmas he bought me a copy of Frankenstein because I read Dracula and he figured, hey, perfect follow up, Frankenstein. And when I got that though, I just basically finished reading The Stand, and I was so mentally drained. The Stand's a great book, but it's so long and it has a lot of information to absorb that I sat down and said, okay, I'll get to this, and then I never officially got to it until I saw this movie because it made me really want to read the book. And that's something a great adaptation should do. It should make you want to read the source material. And so it's like I would say about Starship Troopers is I wish more people knew Starship Troopers was based on a novel so that way they can read the source material and see where they actually took from the movie, from the book, and things that they used that they kind of created for the film. But we're not talking about Starship Troopers here, we're talking about Frankenstein. And like I said, the acting is all around exceptional. Mia Goth did really good too. Christoph Waltz, also an exceptional performance. Everyone here brought their A game, and that's what I loved. Now, this is a Guillermo del Toro movie, and for the life of me, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his first name correctly. Probably not. So we already know that it's going to have a lot of visual storytelling, obviously. Now, the settings are all really well done. When we're in the Arctic, it looks and feels cold. Even when we're in the village with the monster, when he meets the blind old man, you feel the environments. When we're in Castle Frankenstein, it feels like for our standards, ancient tower. And all of it looks glorious. And when he actually creates the monster, when he has to set up the whole visual storytelling of it, it just shines on the screen, because that's one thing that Del Toro excels at, is his visual storytelling. There's a reason why Pacific Rim is one of my favorite movies of all time, because obviously it's one of my favorite things. Giant monsters punching and fighting giant robots. One of my favorite things ever. Or giant robots punching and fighting giant monsters. That's one of my favorite things ever. I mean, I'm wearing a Godzilla shirt, for crying out loud. I would love for Del Toro to try and make a Godzilla movie. That's basically what Pacific Rim is. Because that's the thing about Del Toro, is his movies come from a place where you can definitely tell he has a love of what he's making. He's like, when he made Pacific Rim, he had a love of kaiju movies. When he made Blade 2, he has a love of vampires. I mean, obviously that came with Kronos. When he made Crimson Peak, he has a love for atmospheric gothic tragedy. When he made what's that movie called? It's the one that he won an Academy Award for. One that's about the sea monster. But that one, he clearly had a love for the creature of the Black Lagoon, and he wanted to tell his own kind of take with it. And it is kind of similar to Abe from Hellboy. And again, with that too, Hellboy in the comic, he's more just a straight detective than an action hero. But there's still love, passion, and motivation when it comes to crafting everything in that. And that's why I wish we also got his take on Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, because that would have been an outstanding experience, I know it. But outside of just the visual storytelling, while this isn't a gore movie, the violence is brutal. Like, if someone gets hit, it's not like you're seeing blood spray out of them like a trauma movie or a Japanese gore film. If you haven't seen Tokyo Gore Police, or if you have seen Tokyo Gore Police, you know what I mean when I'm saying that. It's very much someone gets hit, you feel that hit. There's a scene where wolves attack the small house and they're going after the sheep. And when they attack the sheep, it genuinely feels like, oh, the sheep are being murdered here. Or when Frankenstein is just, when his leg gets busted, it feels, that's not a spoiler, by the way, you learn he has a prosthetic leg at the beginning of the movie. When you actually see his leg get busted, every time it happens, it's just like, that's because that's another thing. Is like Del Toro, he doesn't make, he makes gore, but he doesn't make splatter gore. He makes brutal gore. And most of his films aren't really that splattery or that over-the-top violent, but that's the thing he is consistent with. Probably with Blade, too, that is kind of a loose exception. But he knows how to make violence feel harsh and real, even in a fantasy, fantastic setting. Like I said, all around, this movie is a complete package. That's why I wish it was a full feature. I mean, it's a full feature, but full theatrical film. Because that's what this movie is. It is a cinema experience. And I believe had they really advertised this around the Halloween season, this could have done gangbusters. Because this is a great Halloween movie. Even though, like I said, I think this is actually good because, I'll get to that in a second. It's a good transition from Halloween to Thanksgiving, like that little off period, like we're on the off ramp of creepy season. Because this movie, it's not a horror film. It's a tragedy. It's not a horror. It's a tragedy. And I was watching this one video and it was discussing the novel, and he said he wasn't scared from reading the book. He said he just felt like he read like an story of like Icarus flying too close to the sun. It was a drama, a tragedy, a heartbreaking story. Obviously, the monster going on a rampage is scary, and still to this day, I do consider Frankenstein the story a horror novel. Don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted. But first and foremost, it's just a sad story about a man who wanted to play God. Again, this is Icarus flying way too close to the sun. And it is heartbreaking. And this movie really sells that. There are a few moments where some of the dialogue can feel a little too poetic, and there are also other moments where people are blatantly explaining what's going on, and some of the dialogue is on the nose. Someone says the line, "You are the monster Frankenstein," which I was like, okay, that's a little tacky, but again, this is like a more art house Renaissance era movie. This is a callback to the classics of the Hammer horror films. So sometimes dialogue like that is actually pretty excusable. And again, Del Toro knows exactly what he's doing. He is a master of this craft. If anyone were to adapt Frankenstein, I can see it being him. I can see him adapting all the classic monsters. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, the Wolfman. And again, if we're gonna have a modern adaptation of it, Phantom of the Opera, because his style begs to be the one that is creating the true, honest adaptation of the novel of Phantom of the Opera. Because I was watching Your Captain speaking, and he was discussing how there has never been a true, honest adaptation of the book. He said there's accurate ones, but he said that there hasn't been a complete adaptation of Phantom of the Opera. And of course, we all know it is really hard to actually do a full send adaptation. I mean, the most accurate adaptation of the book Dracula is a homemade horror movie called Alucard. And before Frankenstein even started playing, because Tyler saw this also, my best friend, we saw this years ago. I leaned over to him and I said, "Is this going to be the Alucard of Frankenstein movies?" Meaning, basically a word-for-word adaptation. Now, I don't think anyone's expecting that. Even I don't expect that. But Del Toro is the guy. He is the guy to make the modern adaptation of of Phantom of the Opera. Again, I would love for him to do Dracula, but we already have another Dracula adaptation on the way. We already had Nosferatu. We had Last Voyage of the Demeter. So we are set on Dracula for a little bit. I think for at least the next 10 years. I just know Nosferatu is not Dracula, but it is an adaptation of the Dracula novel. So, but again, I think that is such a missed opportunity that Del Toro was not the one to also adapt Dracula. Again, we have enough Dracula right now. You can sneeze and find an adaptation of the coming out of that novel, which I'm excited for. Don't get me wrong, because I will watch it because Dracula is one of my favorite novels ever written. It's one of because sometimes when I'm driving, I'll listen to audiobooks, especially if it's a really long drive, or if trying to go to bed, I'll actually listen to audiobooks too, and Dracula is actually one of my top audiobooks to listen to while falling asleep. I just answered a lot of questions about myself. But anyway, Frankenstein. This is going to be on Netflix soon. I cannot stress how much I recommend this movie. This is a piece of art. This is pure cinema, absolute cinema, as some people might say. Make sure to watch this on the biggest screen that you can. Like, don't let David Lynch down. Don't watch it on your phone, even though that might be funny. But please don't let my man David Lynch down. Don't watch it on your phone. Don't watch it on a small TV. Find a friend who has the biggest TV. Bring your Netflix over to him and watch it. Because it is glorious. The visual storytelling, the acting, the violence, the writing, everything comes together exceptionally well. This is what movies were made for, ladies and gentlemen. Frankenstein 2025. Now again, do not go into it thinking you're going to get a horror movie, because it's not a horror movie. There's scenes of violence and there are some horrific moments, but it's a tragedy. Again, I call it, it's a story of Icarus flying too close to the sun. It is 100% worth your time. But again, don't go into it expecting a horror movie, because that's not what you're going to get. And do understand there are some poetic dialogue, if you know what I mean. But it's so worth it. And I saw it on Discount Tuesday, so I didn't pay that higher price for it to see it. But even still, I would have paid full price for this, because this movie is just awesome. Absolute masterpiece. I expect nothing less from Del Toro. He is, even his movies aren't the best. The Shape of Water, that's the movie he made about the sea monster. Even if the movie isn't the best movie, like something like Crimson Peak, which I still enjoyed, but it's not his highest work. He's like, his world building is just so encapsulating that if a movie has his name on it, I'm going to watch it. I still have to watch Pinocchio, which upsets me that I haven't watched that yet. I know Barnes & Noble is having their Criterion sale, so I might run out and grab that. Not tonight, it's almost 9 o'clock. But Frankenstein. I wish they would have given it the full title, Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus, to be, completely in it. But outside of that, watch Frankenstein. Anyways, my friends, I gotta get ready for bed. But where would I rank this on the best Frankenstein adaptations? I mean, obviously I'm always gonna be nostalgic for the Boris Karloff one, because the trilogy, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, those three are always going to be my nostalgic ones. They're always probably going to be my favorite, because I saw them when I was really young. And so I guess it is going to be something I have to think about, because this is a great movie. But anyway, I'm delaying the inevitable. I gotta get ready for bed. because I gotta be up early tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna go fall asleep now. Peace out and good night.